Warning, the following video has spoilers for the books below. If you haven't read them yet, just go do it. They're really good. Let's get on with the video.
You don't understand, Tekchin said. Galantian isn't a group or organization. It's just a word, a Frey word. Moya, Persephone said. Galantian means hero. At its core, it means the best, Nephron said. In Instaria tradition, he is Galantian who epitomizes the best of the tribe's values: honor, martial skill, and bravery. In the Legends of the First Empire series, Nephron and his Galantians play a pivotal role. In fact, Sullivan has even stated that, originally, they were planned to be the main characters. But while the human characters ended up stealing the spotlight for the most part, we still get to see Elan's greatest warriors in action, as well as spectate their eventual downfall. But how did the Galantians get started? Who is the mysterious Galantian Nephron mentions he has lost? And why does each Galantian have their own fighting style? Those are just some of the questions we will be answering in today's video. This story began centuries before Age of Myth takes place. In Alan Rist, Zephron was still the leader of the Instaria, and a young Nephron had become a quite skilled combatant. As the warrior tribe, every year the Instaria held a martial contest to find out who was the best fighter in a wide range of categories. Though only 376, Nephron had already won at his young age due to his skill with a sword and shield. Nephron decided to form a band of warriors by going to each of the other winners of the skill divisions. Tekchin, Ares, Medak, Vorath, and Anatole all agreed to join him. Tekchin used his long, thin blade. Ares used his spears and javelin. Medak used his daggers. Vorath used his chain and mace. And we do not know what Anatole's specialty was. Being young and full of confidence and ambition, Nephron thought his band was invincible. Zephron, seeing his son's arrogance, decided to send them on 5 impossible tasks to teach them humility. First, they had to subdue a specific famous giant. Second, they had to fix the flooding of Hilden Pass. Third, they needed to stop the famine in Oltek. Fourth, they had to halt disease in Debar. And lastly, they had to slay the goblin lord Ballad. Though Zephron was most certainly setting his son up for failure, he didn't want him to die, and so sent one of the most deadly Instaria to help protect him, Sebek, who was renowned for his skill with dual swords. The band set off north to Hentlin to find the giant named Grigor. They find him just in the nick of time. Grigor recalls this moment when explaining to Pedera his hatred of his own race. They tried to kill me. Twice. Sheer luck saved me the first time. Second time, it was Nephron. Didn't look back after that. Nephron was not actually there to save Grigor, though. He just needed to be the one to subdue him. After battling, though, Nephron was unable to best Grigor, so instead asked him to join the Galantians, which Grigor agreed to. It should be noted at this point that while Grigor is definitely bigger and stronger than any Frey, it was his skill that made him so deadly. Grigor used a single massive sword that Tesh would later remark was big, even for him. Next, the group would head to Haldine Pass. Now that they had a giant on their side, they were able to cause a landslide in order to divert an entire river in order to stem the flood. Not only did this complete the second task, but the diverted river now ran near Oltek, giving crops much needed water and ending the famine. With 3 tasks down, they headed to Debar, which neighbored Oltek. They found that the disease was caused by inadequate food and sanitation. Taking advantage of a now budding Oltek, they brokered a trade agreement between Oltek and Debar, which improved the food, sanitation, and conditions in Debar, thereby halting the disease. Finally, they headed to Adendel Durat to face the Lord of the Durat-Ran Gazelle. This would turn out to be the most costly of the tasks. A 5-day-long battle would rage, during which Anatole would become the first Galantian to fall. Finally, they were able to kill Lord Ballad. Tekchin would be the one to do it, earning his scar in the process that Moya would later comment on. "I'm Tekchin, the handsomest and most skilled of the Galantians." "That scar suggests otherwise," Moya replied, "on both counts." While in the caves, the groups would also rescue an Ascendoir Frey who was being held prisoner. His name was Anwir, and he would go on to join them, adding his specialty of ropes and slings. It was at this point, having slain the Goblin Lord and completing their final task, that the band took up the Galantian name, which means hero in Frey. It is interesting to note that the goblins did not forget this name either, and thousands of years later, a derivation of it, Galanti, would be used to label someone as a killer. The Galantians would return to Alan Rist, and many years later, after Zephron's demise, would begin their plan to start the war and make Nephron Fane. It is at this point that things start going downhill for them. The next Galantian to meet his demise is Midak at Dol Ren when Grendel came. "Midak! No!" Nephron shouted as another Galantian, the small one with the knives, threw one and then chased it with another. Both blades disappeared with a hiss and a cloud of vapor. Grendel squeezed a fist, and Midak screamed until his head caved in. Later, once the humans have taken up residence in Alan Rist, Persephone would ask Nephron, "Have you lost many Galantians over the years?" He appeared surprised and shook his head. "Just 2. Persephone incorrectly assumes that the goblin Oberdaza Striker is 1, but Nephron is actually referring to Midak and Anatole. There is an interesting moment in Alan Rist, right before Fane Lothian begins his final assault at the Battle of Granford, where Moya decides to stay with an injured Persephone. Tekchin calls her brave and a Galantian. Then after some discussion, Nephron looked at Vorath and Anwir, who both nodded, as did Ares. And so 7 once more becomes 8, implying that Moya is now a Galantian. Shortly after, during the assault, Vorath would be the next to go. For a moment, Persephone thought there might be hope. If the Galantians could hold them, and Moya could shoot, but then the wall to the hallway exploded, and Frey poured into the sitting room. Grigor took a spear thrust to his shoulder and another to his side. He staggered. Vorath rushed to his aid, and was the first to fall as 3 blades hit him from behind. Persephone didn't see it, but she heard Ares cry his name. At the same time, in a different part of the Kype, Tesh had snuck into an injured Sebek's room and revealed his true mission of vengeance. He let Sebek cry. The Frey dropped to his knees, and he wept over the broken blades. Tesh gave him a full minute before severing his head from his neck. The final Galantian to die in that battle would be Grigor. The Mirleith either noticed Grigor didn't have armor, or the fear of a rampaging giant had caused the Frey to act out of reflex. In any case, his defense wasn't another blast of air. A brilliant white light struck the giant. "Grigor!" Padera yelled. Her voice was louder than Persephone thought possible. The giant died in an instant. Later in the campaign, as the humans were marching on the Harwood, Tesh would continue his revenge, assassinating Ares. "Makes sense," Davy agreed. "But I thought Frey can't kill Frey, so whoever took Ares out must have really hated him. Maybe there had been a history between them. I mean, he was the only one whose head had been cut off." It would be 5 years before Tesh would take his next victim. We lost 6 this trip: Meeks, Brinks, Ethan, Seth, Pritchard, as well as Anwir. "Anwir?" Nephron asked, his eyes darkening. "How?" "Ambushed, just before we left the forest on our way here." At that point, the Galantians would be down to just 2 original members. They would go down to just one while Tekchin was in Pyre, but he would return, and those members would go on to be the only ones present at the start of the new empire. When I was young, that out there was my playground. Averlin was a grand gateway to high adventures. The snow-capped mountains of Hentlin were home to the violent Grenmorians. The jagged teeth of the Adendo Durat hosted the hill goblins. The meadows were rich with game, and the Harwood filled with dark secrets. I bathed in the gold sunsets, wandered beneath the moon, and gleefully accepted every challenge. Even among the Instaria, I'm a legend, a hero.
Thank you so much for watching today's video. Be sure to subscribe and watch my other videos to learn more about the world of Elan and Riyria. Thanks!